What is a person worth? By that engineer. Chapter 6. Making Tough Decisions. On this typical sunny day in Royal Woods, Lynn Jr. was practicing some of her soccer moves in the backyard. Given her history with balls in the house, any time she wanted to practice some contact sport, she had to do it outside. However, there was one grating issue when it came to practice. At times, she needed a partner. An obvious choice would be to ask her teammates if they had the time. But instead, the 13-year-old decided to go to the one person she could always trust, her brother. Although she wouldn't say it out loud, she always enjoyed it when Lincoln practiced with her. It wasn't because of how easy it was to score points due to the boy's lack of interest or physical fitness, but more on the lines that she found it to be a good quality time for the both of them. And because she wanted to get Lincoln out of his room so he wouldn't hold up in there all day. Grabbing the ball, Lynn walked through the back door and into the kitchen. Upon entry, she saw her comedian of a sister cooking up something in the oven. "Hey, Luann, have you seen Lincoln?" "Lincoln? Who's Lincoln?" she asked, genuinely confused. The jock gave a dry laugh. "Ha ha! Very funny. You can't tell me you don't remember our brother?" she smirked. We never had a brother. We only have 8 other sisters. But since you seem hard-pressed about this Lincoln guy, is he your new friend?" Luann stated in a suggestive tone as she raised her eyebrows. Lynn looked at her in disgust. "What? Ew, no! Why would I like Lincoln like that?" The 14-year-old gave her a typical laugh. "Ha ha ha ha! Just saying, there hasn't been any other guy in this house besides Dad since forever, so who knows?" she continued to tease. Lynn grew red around her cheeks and stormed out of the kitchen. Luann's laughter followed her out. In the living room, the sports lover saw Lenny on the couch, watching a fashion show. "Hey, Lenny, you seen Lincoln anywhere?" "Lincoln? I don't know any Lincolns here," the blonde stated, looking around for a moment. She spotted a brown, rounded piece of copper on the floor. "Wait, here he is!" She grabbed the object, which turned out to be a penny. The jock slapped her forehead in frustration. "Our brother isn't Abraham Lincoln, Lenny." "Wait! We have a brother? Did Mom, have another baby or something?" The 16-year-old shouted in joy. "You willy-woolly toads, adorable together." Lincoln's 11, Lynn stated, now getting confused. "Ooh, well, there's Lucy, Lana, Lola, Lisa, Luann, Luna, Lenny, Lori." She recalled her memory to see if she had met anyone in the family named Lincoln, besides the penny she grabbed. Looking back to where Lynn was, she noticed she was gone. "Let's turn invisible!" she screamed in terror. In truth, the sports fanatic actually went upstairs. That would be the last time she asked Lenny about anything. She also probably shouldn't have asked Luann about it either, knowing she likes to joke around. Stomping towards the room at the end of the hallway, Lynn threw the door open, only to find nothing but rows of shelves filled with linen, bedsheets, towels, and some stuff that was stowed in there for safekeeping. Now Lynn was truly confused. This became Lincoln's bedroom shortly after Lily came into their lives, yet it looked like as if no one lived in there. Growing in a panic, she knocked on Lisa's door. "Lisa, are you in there?" An irritable groan came in response. Seconds later, the child prodigy opened the door. "What is it now?" "Please tell me this isn't what I think I'm seeing right now." Lynn pointed towards the closet. Lisa poked her head out to see what got her sports-obsessed sister so riled up. "It's just a hall closet," she stated in a dull tone. "But it shouldn't be a closet. That's Lincoln's room. Don't you remember him? He's been my brother for 11 years. "Lynn, we've never had a brother.
You may not remember it due to being only 2 years old, but our maternal unit was harboring another child that unfortunately ended up being a miscarriage. Its gender wasn't even identified yet, so it's possible that could have been the brother you speak of. From what I know, our parental units haven't tried to have another child for a few years before Lucy was conceived. Sorry to say, but we do not have a male sibling.
With that, Lisa shut the door to resume whatever she had cooked up in her lab. Lynn stood there, completely petrified. She gripped her head as fear creeped into her thoughts. This can't be happening. Please tell me this isn't true.
Oh, it's very much true, Lynn,
spoke a voice that sounded much like her own. Turning around, the jock was shocked to find another person who looked exactly like her, but with a few differences. This Lynn, however, had darker hair, wore darker clothing, had red eyes, and held a smug look that made it seem like she took the joy in the suffering of others.
Who are you? Who else, idiot? I'm you. Your other half, to be exact.
The jock grew incredulous. That's ridiculous! How can I have two halves?
Simple, Linda. I'm the part of you that relishes in the spotlight. We always like to be the star player, not caring much about anyone else. We take pride in crushing our enemies, but the best part?
The counterpart grinned, showing her razor-sharp teeth.
Even if we lose, it's never our fault. But what are you getting at? Lynn asked nervously. Oh, don't play dumb with me. We both know that Lincoln was at fault for ruining our chances to win with this stupid bad luck. It couldn't possibly be because we didn't practice hard enough,
the other Lynn said sarcastically.
He even had the nerve to call us losers. As such, I had to get rid of him. Always looking out for number one, right?
She flashed that same smug grin. Lynn grew extremely angry. Grabbing her twin, she pinned her to the wall. What did you do to him? Evil Lynn just grinned. The jock banged her against the wall in response. Answer me, you little fucker! Part of the wall moved to reveal a large screen. It showed Lynn only being 2 years old at the time. Very young and very explorative. Rita sure had her hands full getting the little tomboy to sit still. Her mother turned away for a moment to go grab something out of the kitchen, while little Lynn played around with a ball. But soon, little Lynn had a smirk that resembled that of her counterpart. When Rita came back, the toddler threw the ball at the matriarch, which impacted her abdominal area. Rita temporarily had the wind knocked out of her from the impact, but it looked to be okay otherwise. However, the damage was actually more severe than expected. A few days passed with Rita having a somber expression on her face, with Lynn Sr. trying to comfort her. All of the girls asked what was wrong, but the parents told them it was nothing they needed to worry about. Lynn quickly put the incidents together and turned to her counterpart. She was absolutely livid as the girl raised her fist. You killed my brother! The jock flung her fists at evil Lynn, but to her surprise, the jock vanished into thin air, along with the rest of the hallway. Lynn stood alone in a black, distorted void, trying to get a hold of her bearings. To make matters worse, she heard her twin's taunting voice echo throughout the area.
Sure, I killed him, but it's what you wanted, right? You wish for him to never be born, right?
Several screens popped up around Lynn, showing the fight she had with Lincoln just hours earlier. They kept repeating the words she didn't mean to use on him over and over again. Lynn sunk to the ground, covering her ears as she tried to block them out, but to no avail. I didn't mean to say that to him! I swear I didn't! The poor girl was on the verge of crying.
Well, what can I say, Lynn? Be careful what you wish for.
Evil Lynn's laugh echoed throughout the dimension, making Lynn begin to sob uncontrollably.
What's wrong, crybaby? Wake up and smell the flowers. Wake up! Wake up!
In real time, Lucy was shaking her roommate vigorously. Lynn, wake up. Ah! The jock had finally awoken. screaming bloody murder. Panting, she quickly looked around, noting she was back in her room. Lucy was standing next to her, and that she was sweating profusely. Lifting the covers up, she saw she still had bandages around her ankle. It was only a dream? Must have been a pretty gruesome nightmare, Lucy stated monotonously. How'd you know to wake me? Lynn wiped some sweat off her forehead. You were talking in your sleep. If I had to guess, it was about Lincoln. Lynn slowly nodded, looking at her injury. Did Mom and Dad find him? Lucy hung her head. Sigh. They didn't. But they did stop by the hospital to get some stuff for your foot. Lucy pointed over to the door. Leaning on the wall was a pair of crutches and an Achilles strap. The sports lover groaned. Oh, do I really need the crutches? I can walk just fine without them, she stated, moving her legs to get up. However, the second her foot with the injury touched the floor, she recoiled as pain shot through her. Lynn, you could barely walk yesterday, and I had to help you get to the car. The strap is to keep your foot straight while it heals, but you'll need those supports to move around, unless you prefer to lose your foot entirely, Lucy explained. The goth had a point there. If she lost her foot, or any of her limbs for that matter, she could kiss her dream of being a professional athlete goodbye. She's already lucky enough that Lincoln's bite wound didn't get infected. Being Lynn, injuries were practically second nature with her. She was probably the only Loud in the family that would require some medical attention on a frequent basis. However, she also had a lot of pride, and didn't like it when something made her appear weak. During one round of soccer practice, she took the phrase break a leg quite literally by accidentally landing on her left leg the wrong way. The shin bone was broken in two and required her to use a wheelchair for several weeks. At first, she refused any sort of help from her siblings, but eventually she managed to open up and accept their assistance. Even though she hated being in that situation in the first place, she learned that her family was just looking out for her and wanted to aid her through her trials. Plus, no matter how you look at it, there was no way she could go up the stairs by herself, or even take a shower, something she was still trying to figure out before she finally decided to get help. Lucy was just being the concerned little sister she should be. Giving a small sigh, bring me that strap, please. Lucy nodded before walking over and tossing the item to her sister. Lynn carefully slipped it on her foot, wincing a little as it pulled on her tendon until it was kept straight. What time is it? 5:30. In that case, I'm going downstairs to eat something. Getting off the bed, the jock hopped over to her crutches and grabbed them for support. That hellish nightmare she experienced was something she did not want to go through again, and she doubted she'd get back to sleep before her alarm clock wakened her. About the same time, Renalda was snoring lightly until she felt something nuzzling her back. Creaking her eyes open, she wondered what it was that was touching her until she saw her hand still clasping around another. Remembering the events of last night, her cheeks reddened, partially because she was happy, and the fact Lincoln was nuzzling his face into her back as if she was Bun Bun herself. Knowing his arm was still around her waist, she lightly squeezed the boy's hand, causing him to pull her a little closer. The tomboy wasn't sure if Lincoln was still asleep or fully aware of what he was doing, but it didn't matter to her. She just wanted to lie in this bliss for 5 more minutes. Unfortunately, one look at the clock told her she would have to abandon the moment. Eyes widening, she uttered a swear as she knew her parents would be up soon. If they caught them in their current position, God knows what would be in store for them. And Renalda certainly did not want her parents prying into her secret relationship. Given a saddened sigh, she slowly pulled herself out of Lincoln's grasp, being careful not to wake him. He probably did notice the lack of warmth next to him as Ronnie Ann saw his arm move around for a bit before resting again. She couldn't help but notice at how peaceful he looked while sleeping. This made her happy, knowing all the crap his family had put him through, and she was there to make sure he got a good night's rest. Otherwise, he'd probably be suffering a nightmare or something. Upon hearing the alarm clock go off in her parents' bedroom, Ronaldo quickly and quietly shuffled to her room and pretended to be asleep. An hour passed before sunlight began to creep through the blinds in the living room. Their parents already out of the abode for the day. Lincoln was sleeping soundly before the pattering of pans in the kitchen stirred him. Slowly opening his eyes, the first thing he noticed was that he was still at the Santiago household. At first, he had been hoping that maybe this whole thing was just a bad dream, but as memories of his triad came fresh to his mind, he couldn't help but sulk a bit. This didn't last long, though, as the scent of delicious food hit his nostrils. Stomach grumbling, the loud boy got off the couch and wandered into the kitchen. To his surprise, he found Ronnie Ann cooking up breakfast, and Bobby was chowing on waffles. "Oh, hey, bro, what's you up?" The teen spoke, though his voice was muffled due to food in his mouth.
Bobby, don't talk with your mouth full,
Ronaldo scolded. "Sorry, Nini, but you make the best waffles," he stated before resuming his meal.
Nini?
Lincoln asked amusingly, causing the tomboy to blush. "It's my nickname."
Well, at least I have something to call you now.
The 11-year-old chuckled.
Call me that and you won't like the results,
Ronaldo said half-jokingly, making Lincoln wonder if she was being serious or not. Then she heard the boy's stomach growl again, making her smirk. "Someone's hungry."
Yeah, you guys don't mind, do you? What kind of question is that, lame-o? You had dinner last night, too.
"True. Sorry." Lincoln paused, forming a frown. "I still have a lot on my mind." "Want to talk about it?" Bobby asked. Ronaldo looked uncertain. Sure, she managed to get Lincoln to spill the beans overnight, but there was no guarantee when it came to describing it to anyone else. The look on her face said it all when she noted the determined look Lincoln formed as he thought about it. "Yeah, I think it's time to let you in on what happened." "You sure, Lincoln?" Ronaldo asked. The white-haired boy nodded. "If there's one thing you made me realize last night, it's that I can't expect to keep quiet about this forever. The truth will come out eventually." He sat down at the table. "All right. How many waffles do you want?" "Just 2. Ronaldo nodded and poured more batter into the waffle iron. She also had some eggs and bacon cooked up, too. While this was happening, Lincoln told Roberto the whole story. Sparing no details, he explained the whole situation involving luck that happened at his house over the past month, his part in it, and what happened when he let his light get out of hand, and the amount of crap he went through during his good luck phase. Ronnie Ann joined the table when Lincoln started talking about some of the misdeeds his sisters put Lincoln through, and to her surprise, there was even more onto that list with what they discussed last night. Even Bobby left his mouth hanging open in shock from hearing everything, and Lincoln wasn't even finished. "So after all of that, I felt so angry I actually cursed at all of them." "Wait, so you're saying you actually..." Bobby stated. "Yes, Bobby. I swore up and down like no tomorrow. I actually feel a little bad about doing it, but I was just so mad. It got worse when I fought with Lynn. I scolded her because of her attitude when she dragged me to her game. I guess she really hates being called a loser." "So that's why your hand looks so bad," Roberto noted. Lincoln nodded and looked at his right hand. It dawned on him when he started eating that, without his writing hand, he effectively couldn't do any schoolwork. Even holding the fork in his left hand felt weird. He tried to write with his lefty some time ago, but the words came out completely illegible. Like Ronaldo, Roberto was completely aghast at what Lincoln had been put through. He couldn't even think that Lori would even do such a thing. Sure, the 17-year-old could be rather bossy at times, but he would never think she'd be a part of what happened to some crusade against her only brother. Hell, he ended their relationship once just because Lincoln made Nene cry, and right now he was thinking about doing the same thing, but for the opposite reasons. Bro, words cannot describe how sorry I feel for you. I'm even shocked that Lori, of all people, would do such a thing. I mean, like, seriously, who barfs on someone and takes a picture of it? She is so not my babe anymore. In fact, I'm going to call her right now, the teen stated, grabbing his phone. This time, Lincoln had to smack the phone out of his hands. Oh, come on! It's lucky this thing has a protective case. But Bobby, if you tell Lori you know everything, that means she'll know you knew where I was the whole time. And they'll come here, the boy explained in disdain. The man with many jobs gave a sigh. True, but I don't think you realize how serious this is, Lincoln. Banning you from your activities is one thing, but purposely locking you out of the house? That's a criminal offense. Both kids grew wide-eyed. How did you know that's a felony? Ronaldo asked. Working as a security officer at the mall. I just had to learn a lot of laws, plus some that wouldn't pertain to just stuff that happens there. But as I was saying, purposely kicking out a minor that hasn't been legally emancipated is considered child abandonment, which is a crime punishable by being given a misdemeanor or a felony. Since this sounds like the first time this has happened, both your parents would be charged with a misdemeanor, and, well, they might be sent to prison for maybe a year? Bobby was unsure over how to word that last part, but he wanted to try to make it sound as sweet as possible to ease the news. My parents could go to jail for this! Lincoln yelled, making the teen wince. Sure, Lincoln was more annoyed than shocked at the fact his family kicked him out the first time, but he never thought it'd probably attract the police. Yeah, sorry, bro, but something like this just can't be ignored. I guess. But don't call the police just yet. I'll do it myself, Lincoln said in an uncertain tone. You sure, Link? Roberto asked. Yeah. I just need some time to think about it. The boy stared at his food. After getting this unexpected news flash, he lost his appetite. Sorry, Ronaldo, but I'm not so hungry right now. It's all right, Lincoln, she replied, taking his plate to cover it with foil. Oh, and your clothes are clean. Thanks. Shortly after that awkward breakfast, Lincoln was back in his regular clothing, and Ronnie Ann sported her usual attire as well. The ashen-haired boy sat outside the front door, staring up at the clear blue sky while being deep in thought. It wasn't every day that you heard your folks could actually be sent to prison. Sure, Lincoln himself had been subjected to being held in custody at the mall once because he and Clyde fell for a scheme set up by an undercover mall cop. But that ordeal only lasted half an hour. This was a yearly sentence he was thinking of slapping his parents with. If they were arrested, what would become of his siblings, or even himself? Sure, he lost a great amount of love and respect he had for them all, but could Lincoln actually have it in him to break his family apart like that? There were so many things he had to consider. Ronaldo stepped out of the door with her backpack on, skateboard in hand, and caught Lincoln in a daze. You all right? He turned and did a quick peek. Yeah, I'm fine. Lincoln. Ronnie, I'm all right. I just have a lot on my plate right now. I kind of hate my family, but still, I still don't want to go home just yet. But we will have to stop by my place because all my stuff is there. But I don't want you to be late for school. The Hispanic girl softly held his hand. I wouldn't care if I'm late if it means helping you. Plus, you look silly wearing Bobby's clothes. She gave a small laugh. Admittingly, Lincoln hadn't known much about Ronnie Ann. Just yesterday, he learned what her actual name was. She was always brash and very rough around the edges when they were in public, mostly because they had been keeping their relationship a secret for some time. However, they never knew what she was like outside of her usual tough girl attitude. The boy never knew someone like her could also be kind and compassionate. She gave him comfort and confidence when he was feeling down like a real girlfriend would. Perhaps this was how Lori felt when Bobby cheers her up. Lincoln probably wouldn't say it out loud, but he was actually glad that Ronaldo decided to choose him as her target for bullying. So, giving a smile, "All right, let's go." A 15-minute walk was all it took for the couple to reach the home Lincoln currently despised. Thankfully, Manzella was absent, and there was hardly a sound coming from the abode. Perhaps the occupants already left for school. Lincoln cautiously peeked through the window, finding no one in the living room. "Looks like the coast is clear." "So if they locked you out the first time, how do you expect to get in?" "The kitchen door has a doggy door for Charles. I'm pretty sure both of us can fit through it," the boy stated, walking around to the backyard. Poking his head through the small door, he found no one to be in the kitchen. He crawled through quite smoothly before opening the door for Ronalda. The Hispanic girl never thought she'd be in the Loud House when it was all quiet. Then again, what would she expect when most of the occupants were away doing their daily business? Lincoln stepped into the living room, spotting his backpack exactly where he left it last night. The memories came rushing back to him as he looked around. Small patches of blood were seen on the carpet, and there was even a noticeable crack in the wall he pushed Lynn into during their fight. Ronnie Ann took note of this as she walked around ground zero, grimacing a bit at the blood patches. Lincoln and violent usually didn't go in the same sentence, yet the damage caused by his and Lynn's fight was quite clear, despite how limited it was. The tomboy sincerely hoped she wouldn't have to meet that side of him anytime soon. She could also tell Lincoln was getting caught up in his memories again, as his hands were curling into fists. Snapping her fingers in his face, "Lincoln, let's get your stuff and get out of here." "Right, sorry." They walked up the stairs and went into Lincoln's room. The boy smiled as he picked up Bun Bun, giving the little plush a small squeeze. He then looked in a few bins to find a large camper bag.
"I still can't believe they actually wanted to sell your stuff,"
the tomboy said bitterly, noting the lack of furniture. "Well, I think we can both say my family is a pack of morons," the family stated as he packed a good amount of clothes into his bag. After getting his clothing and items, he also packed some of his Savvy comics, toys, computer, and even a few bathroom necessities. Once he was finished, the duo went back to the Santiago house to stash his bag. It was rather heavy, so Ronaldo had to help carry it.
"Geez, did you have to pack your entire room into this?"
"It's not everything I own," Lincoln panted. He just didn't want to walk around all day with the stuff. It'd be a lot of unnecessary attention, and he'd get back cramps. Once they got back to the house, they'd set the bag in the living room. Unfortunately, the time it took getting to and from the Loud House meant school would start soon. Lincoln glanced at the clock. "Uh-oh, school starts in 10 minutes. We'll never get there in time." Ronaldo smirked. "Don't worry, I got an idea." She glanced at her skateboard. The look she gave meant she had a devious and dangerous idea cooked up. Lincoln gave an audible gulp. Minutes later, two screams could be heard barreling down the road. One was of laughter and excitement, while the other was of sheer terror. Ronaldo was speeding downhill on her skateboard with Lincoln in tow right behind her. He was on a pair of skates, holding onto her hand for dear life. Both had their backpacks on, but managed to compensate for the extra weight. However, Lincoln was leaning so far back his back was scraping against the ground at times. "This is crazy!" he yelled. "I know, right? It's awesome! Whoa!" came the girl's response. They went over a couple of small bumps. Ronnie Ann kept her balance steady, though Lincoln felt like he was going to lose it. "Almost there! I think I'm going to puke! Then turn your head to the side!" Close to the school, the road had flattened out. However, there were at least two intersections. They sped past the first one without issue, but the second only had a few seconds before the light changed. "We're not going to make it!" "Oh, yes, we will!" Ronalda stated as she sped up. The driver of a car was sitting patiently up ahead. Once the light turned green, the man lightly stepped on the accelerator. Unfortunately for him, a couple of kids just barreled right in front of his car, forcing him to hit the brakes hard. The man leaned out the window in anger. "You crazy kids!" Then he noted a rancid smell. Looking at the front of his ride, he saw it was covered in vomit. "Oh, you've gotta be!" His curse was cut off by the cars behind him honking their horns. Ronalda steadily slowed to a stop, kicking her skateboard up. "We gotta do that again. That was just awesome." She turned to Lincoln, whose cheeks were still green from puking. "Oh, maybe not." "Don't worry, Ronnie Ann. Lincoln paused as he felt more vomit coming up, but he managed to push it back down. "I'm good." He chuckled nervously. "If you say so. See you later, lame-o." The Hispanic girl ran into the building. Lincoln followed suit once he was sure he wouldn't empty his stomach anymore. The day had carried on like it usually did. Luckily, Lincoln hadn't ran into any of his sisters, and it seemed like no one else knew of his current situation, not even Clyde. Even so, his depressed state was quite easy to see. Even Mrs. Johnson asked him if he was doing okay after class, especially when she noted his hand injury. When lunchtime rolled around, Lincoln decided to head to the library. As hungry as he was due to skipping breakfast, he needed to find some important information. Along the way, he spotted Lana and Lola in their class, forcing him to duck out of sight. The middle child was a bit paranoid about Lucy creeping up on him, but thankfully he spotted her in her drama class, so that went out the window. Stepping into the library, Lincoln made his way to a computer and typed in a simple search: child neglect. Several answers came up, most of them easily readable on the search engine itself. Let's see. A man or woman commits the crime of abandonment of a child when, being a parent, legal guardian, or other person legally charged with the care or custody of a child less than 18 years, deserts the child with the holy intent to abandon it. Abandonment is a Class A misdemeanor. The boy pulled up a link to the Michigan legislature. On it, it listed all the possible charges for child neglect. After reading the first two, Lincoln deduced that he doubted his parents would be charged for the first and second degree, as he was sure their obliviousness didn't cause serious physical or mental harm. Then again, he was attacked by that gator on Sunday, and he did hate his blood relatives to a T. He then read the third and fourth degree cases. The person knowingly or intentionally commits an act that, under the circumstances, poses an unreasonable risk of harm, or in the act, results in physical harm to the child. This is a felony punishable by imprisonment for no more than 2 years. Lincoln thought this over. Due to his sisters not looking out for him, he ended up getting attacked by a rival team and junkyard dogs. However, he wasn't too sure if that applied to the parents. Still, they might be held responsible for it. The fourth degree. The person knowingly or intentionally commits an act that, under the circumstances, poses an unreasonable risk of harm or injury to a child, regardless of whether physical harm results. This is a misdemeanor punishable by imprisonment for no more than a year. The boy winced. This definitely sounded like what he went through. Lincoln slumped in his chair, staring blankly at the screen. Considering the circumstances, the reasoning behind his whole family locking him out was outlandish in itself. The police would very likely not hold any restraint in condemning the Louds for refusing to house one of their children on the pretense he was bad luck. They might even be pissed enough to charge them with second-degree neglect, since it stated it didn't matter whether actual harm was caused, and leaving him outside could have very likely ended up in serious tragedy. and that's a 10-year imprisonment for the first offense. It didn't help that they intended to sell his furniture as if they didn't expect him to return. It seemed like they were going to turn his room back into the closet it used to be. The ashen-haired boy massaged his temples as he tried to figure out what to do. His parents would most definitely be found guilty for their crimes and face a possibility of up to a decade incarcerated. They would deserve it, though. Locking out their only son, attempting to sell his furniture, not even believing him when he told them his bad luck was a lie, they always seemed to listen to their daughters more than anything else. This was even proved further by the fact they treated him like some mere good luck charm, and not the son they always wanted. It was almost like he was some mistake in the gene pool of his family. And this was probably true given what Lynn told him before he ran away. Lincoln had fished out his cell phone as more negative thoughts creeped in, giving a hard glare at the device. So what if Lynn won 2 stupid games? That didn't give them the right to just abandon him like that. Even his old man told him to back away from the house a bit more before everyone closed their windows. They were so worried about his bad luck that none of them would allow him to sleep in his own room. And on top of that, why did it seem like most of the time he had to learn some lesson while his sisters got away with the stuff they did? Sure, sometimes they'd learn a thing or two, but the very next day they'd end up forgetting about it. At this point, the boy was so fed up, he dialed the emergency services. As the dial tone rang, Lincoln read over the punishments again, but this time his rational side began to kick in. A year in prison was still a long time without seeing your birthmakers. He would be fine with not being around them for a week, maybe a month, but a year? Or 10? How bad would that be in the long haul? Now that he thought about it, his sisters might be put into foster care, considering they didn't make near as enough to keep up on the mortgage and the house, not to mention the monthly bills and food. Even worse, they might be put in Aunt Ruth's care. Visiting their great aunt was bad enough, but living with her? Lincoln grimaced. All of this came down to one single question. Was he really going to break his family apart just to get back at them for their stupidity? 911, what's your emergency? A calm voice spoke on the line, breaking the boy from his thoughts. There was no response. Hello? Hello? Still nothing. Stupid prank callers. Lincoln gave a sigh. Sorry, wrong number, he said as he hung up. The boy placed his phone on the desk before covering his face with his good hand. He just couldn't do it. He had the perfect moment to bring in the legal system, but decided against it. As much as he had the right to make a potentially much-needed court case out of this, the consequences were far too great. Sure, he wanted his family to realize what they've done, but spending years in prison was way too harsh in his mind. Due to this, Lincoln doubted his parents would be called the police themselves. If they did, Lynn Sr. and Rita would have to confess to what happened, and spend their years unable to see any of their children growing up. Lily might even forget who their parents were. And worst of all, it was also possible Lincoln's sisters would hate him for the rest of his life. The Louds would be nothing but a broken family. Also, according to Ronalda, they were looking high and low for him throughout the night. 2 wrongs don't make a right. What pained him the most now was that even after all his family did to him, Lincoln knew deep down he still loved them. In any other case, some may call him weak for not calling the cops, but the boy still wore his heart on his sleeve. He silently cried to himself as he was reminded of the fun times he had with the sisters and parents. He really wished it hadn't come to this point, but somehow it did. Lincoln. A hushed voice spoke. The white-haired boy looked up in surprise, seeing potentially the last person he wanted to talk to. And that, my friends, is the end of the chapter. I'm X-Ray 93, and I'll see you all in Chapter 7. Bye.